All our meeting to order tonight for Monday, October 16th, 2023. If you'd all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We welcome Pastor Lloyd Hoskins from the First Christian Church here tonight to start us with prayer.
Let's turn to God in prayer. Oh God of all the days of all our lives, we see a change of seasons is upon us once again. The daylight hours of our days are getting shorter. The cold greets us more often. We're just a few weeks away from ending daylight saving time. In the midst of all this, it is good for us to acknowledge once again that you are a God for all seasons. You are the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and your presence is ever with us. In the midst of changes, it is good for us to recognize that you are unchanging, but you have seen so many changes on this earth since you created it. You have seen changes in us, people created in your own image, over and over again. We seek your guidance, God, as we continually deal with changes in our own lives, in our community, and in the world. Help us to greet each new season and stand firm through any storm it might bring. We know that change is an ongoing process of our lives. Help us to meet the necessary changes with flexibility and optimism. Help us to work together so that they may not be a hardship on our neighbors. Guide us, O God, in the never-ending task of working together. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Let's move to our minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I've got something I'd like to make a comment on the minutes from the last meeting. On page 3, there's one sentence which says that Huddleston spoke out against the charter ordinance and stated that it appears to him that the charter ordinance is taking the voters out of the process. I did speak about the charter ordinance, but what's not mentioned in the minutes of the last meeting is Mr. Kevin Cowan was here addressing the council. I went back and checked the tape. He spoke for about 35 minutes addressing the council and answering questions, and also answering questions that I asked him. And I think it's important in the record for it to be noted that Mr. Cowan was asked some direct questions regarding the charter ordinance, and have it recorded on what his answer to those questions were. And I'd like to read those so they can be made part of the agenda record. I ask, it appears as though the charter ordinance cuts voters out of getting approval for the debt. Mr. Cowan responded, correct. I ask, what is the election requirement? Mr. Cowan responded, to use the statute to issue bonds, you have to have a successful election. I asked, under the charter ordinance, where is voter participation? Mr. Cohen responded, there is not an election requirement. It is intuit, publication, protest period, then perhaps a petition. I asked, so approval is put after the fact in a charter ordinance? And he said, correct. And then I asked, under the state statute, it's previous to the charter ordinance for approval. Or excuse me, under the state statute, it's previous. And the charter ordinance approval is required first. And he said that was correct. So I just wanted to make sure it's understood that there were answers by Mr. Cohen to direct questions and not just my opinion that was being presented. And I'd like to see that correction made and entered into the minutes.
Do we need a second on that, or need a motion first?
Well, I think we've had discussions pro and con about what is actually discussed during the meeting and included in the minutes several times, that guest speakers and other auditors and other people that have appeared before the council. And I remember when we used to have a pretty good book every month about the minutes with comments that each individual council member made and all that. But we summarized the minutes of the meeting just that were official actions taken by the council. And we do have the video in case there's ever any questions as far as comments and different people's opinion. So to me, there's a fine line of what we do include and what we don't include as far as comments and stuff in the minutes.
I understand, and it's been pointed out to me more than once in our meetings, that even though the video exists, that's not the official record. And if one wants to have official comment, the minutes are the only prevailing record that's official. And the reason I think it's correct, or it's important to have correct information in them, even though it might be a little lengthy from time to time, is we've had some discussion here about the last repair on the dam several years ago. And questions were being asked as to why the riffraff was only a cloth put down instead of rock at that time. And I also understand that it was attempted to go back into the record and search out that information to see what some of the thinking was to why it was done that way and not with the rock riffraff at the time. And it was kind of inconclusive as to the thinking process that was going on then. Now, I don't want a transcript of these meetings. I think that's asking for too much. But in this instance, even the fact that Mr. Cohen addressed the body for over 35 minutes is not mentioned. And I think it was very lightly put in that I had an opinion about the ordinance. And I would just like to see it corrected and have I assume Mr. Cohen is our bond counsel. I've heard him referred to that many times, to have at least his comments entered into the record also.
I think you noticed, Mike, underneath my name, it said that Leffler asked Kevin Cohen to review the charter ordinance in more detail and provide information to the citizens on what this ordinance does. Both Cowan and Shaw explained the purpose of the charter ordinance and et cetera.
Mayor and Council, if you don't mind, to address what Mr. Rivas said, I would agree. We were advised by legal counsel at one point that by having both the video and the minutes, we have two official records, two records of what the action was. So the only requirement for official action is motions and votes. So any of the other comments and stuff like that, that's not required official record. That's not to say it couldn't be in there. We did used to do verbatim, and they strongly encouraged us to get away from that. So if you'll notice in the minutes during the action items, I only put motion and action that was taken. I try to leave out all the comments because we do have the video to go back and see what those comments were. And then additionally, we have the supporting documentation that's provided in the packet as to the background of the action. But in the info memo, I do try to list more of the personal comments because that's when you guys are expressing your questions and staff's providing answers. I will be honest with you, this section was very difficult to try to summarize the conversation that happened. And so that's why I just listed that he addressed the council and that Mr. Cowan addressed the council and gave some explanations. And I wanted to make sure that I noted that you had some opposition to that. So it was difficult to do that, and that's why I didn't provide that information. I'm not opposed to providing information, but the hard part is to decide, do we include everything everyone said, or do we just include what one or two people say? And so that I don't leave someone out in what they said, I try not to put too much detail other than the comments that were made. But I understand your concern, and if the council wants to add that back in, I'm fine with doing that. But that's why that decision was made.
So you're saying that the video is illegal?
Yes, because if someone goes back and looks at the video, you don't want conflicting actions. So if I say in the minutes that you said you thought this was an awesome ordinance and it got approved because you weren't at the next meeting and didn't catch that, but the video says something different, the minutes are the action, not the video, but you would have two conflicting records. And so we try to put just the bare minimum of the actions that were taken in the minutes.
Okay.
Because you can go back to the video and get all the supporting information, the conversation that happened, and hear it word for word, rather than reading my interpretation of what was said. Because I'll be honest with you, when I was doing that verbatim, it took like 8 hours for every meeting. It was crazy because we just had the little tape recorders. But like I said, if you want that noted in here, if you tell me that and the council votes on that, we can add that back in there. But just an explanation on why that decision was made. I don't know, was it 10 years ago or something, to go away from the verbatim?
It's not a lot that I'm asking you to put in there. It's probably, a couple
Right.
of lines.
And we've had that asked before from other people, that they wanted what they said specifically put in there.
So I would like it put in. If the council deems that it's not important to be put in there, then I'll leave that up to their decision.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any other discussion?
I don't think Huddleston's asking for too much. I mean, if he wants a couple lines, I mean, I think it opens the door for where does it stop? But if he's only wanting his 3 or 4 sentences or whatever, I personally have no problem with it being in there.
We're approving a draft, aren't we?
Yes. No, we're approving,
I mean, a draft of the minutes.
yes.
Draft, and
And
this,
the draft can be changed, can't it? I mean, isn't that what draft means? Or it's not a final, is it?
No, it's a final, right?
so this is a draft. If you make a motion and accept this draft, it becomes the official record. If you change it before the vote and the vote is made to make that change, then it can still be changed. But once it's voted on tonight, it's official.
So after it is changed, if it is, how do we know that? Do we ever get a copy of that back of it?
The minutes that'll be posted
Being
as our
changed.
official minutes will have the changes. Anytime you guys tell me there's a correction in the minutes, if I type the incorrect thing, I go back on the official copy and change that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve, to approve the minutes as written. So I want a show of hands that are in favor of approving the minutes as written. Show your hand. Okay, those that are opposed to that? Okay, the motion failed. So,
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as written with the additions that Councilman Huddleston has asked for. You
I
can
second
provide
it.
those to Erica.
I second it.
okay. Have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the minutes with the additions Councilman Huddleston asked for. All those in favor, show your hand. Okay, Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-2. Thank you, council. Let's move down to the appropriation ordinance number 10 dated October 11th, 2023. Council.
I've got a question regarding, there's a lot of expenditures in this appropriations, basically the credit cards for meals and lodging. And I understand that those are probably valid. My question is, it- it's a large dollar amount. We're talking about $3,000-4,000 this time for these items. And I don't see anything in the departmental reports about employees having training or going to conferences. I'm just trying to put together the expenditure with what it's for.
If that's something you'd like us to do, then we can start doing that.
Well, I just thought in the departmental report, they would probably say such and such employees went to training for something, but I don't see any of that.
We can add that. Again, if it's not there right now, we can add that.
I will tell you, I know that the last couple months, there's been a lot of training by the electric staff, the electric department staff for both drone training. There were a couple of conferences that people attended.
Right.
And then back in August, I know there were some questions that I received from other council members about the last credit card. And that was related to when we helped out Ottawa with their power. When their power was out, we had several hotel stays and meals for that. And then we had meals for when they were helping out in Winfield and things like that. But
Right.
there's classes
Well,
and
that would just help
staff would
me
review
get a better
those.
grasp as to what this money is going for. If in the departmental reports, they would say that, we had employees going to training or we had employees attending some conferences. At least I don't know how the rest of the council feel about that.
That's fine.
Well, I agree with Mike on that. It'd make it a lot easier for us. I had to really dig on some of them, but I do know that this is the time of year where they do have a lot of training going on for all different types of stuff.
Got to spend that money.
Any other questions about it?
Make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve this appropriation ordinance number 10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Move down to our want to move down to the visitors. If there's a visitor here tonight that's here about something that is not on the agenda, I'd invite you to the podium. I know we have a lady here and I've already talked to her and we're working on her problem already. And she didn't really want to come up and speak.
And just for council's benefit, we're looking at some no parking signs on one of the roadways that they've requested us to consider if those could be removed. So we're going to try to research the history on them and see why they were placed where they were, and then advise the council accordingly.
Back in the day, we could have called a certain high school senior and he would have had them removed by the time we got out of here. With that, that takes us down to our first order of business, which is a drainage and utility easement vacation. And we have a couple council people that will have to step down right now because it could be construed as a conflict of interest.
All right.
So staff.
Now, Mayor and Council, we're going to have City Planner Rob Cooper do the presentation, the background from the Planning Commission perspective, but then once he gets done speaking, I do want to pick up the conversation and walk you through a document that was provided tonight and explain why, and then we can talk through all of that in detail, make sure the public, everyone else sees it as well. But Rob, can you go ahead and share the background on this item?
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
The recommended action is to consider approval of the vacation of an 80-foot drainage and utility easement. This is located on West Fifth Avenue between Oak Street and the alley, as recommended by the City Planning Commission. The background information, back in June of 2014, the City Council approved and accepted the vacation of the Fifth Avenue street right-of-way between North Walnut and North Oak Street, which was a request from DJ Engineering, basically allowing them to construct additional buildings to their complex. The city and DJ Engineering had entered into a single unit development agreement, the purpose of which was to address certain access, screening, public infrastructure, and drainage conditions that would arise from the vacation of the Fifth Avenue street right-of-way. This development agreement spells out the various requirements DJ will have to comply with regarding development of the site, including the creation of a detailed site plan, drainage plan, and landscape plan, and the acknowledgement of the developer's responsibility to pay all costs associated with relocating utilities. Most recently, October 9th, Planning Commission meeting, the commission considered and recommends that City Council approve the current vacation request for the 80-foot drainage and the utility easement that will allow DJ Engineering to add a new 65 by 140 or 9,100 square foot building to their existing facility. The original vacation of the roadway in 2014 was done to basically set the stage for future building development, given the limited availability of the land that DJ Engineering has for future expansion. This new action to vacate the remaining easement that was preserved from the original action will set the stage for construction of another new building expansion. In terms of public infrastructure, in terms of electric service, there is currently overhead electric service lines that run east and west. It only serves DJ Engineering right now. They have already bored the lines in a private easement to place them underground. Stormwater basically flows to the west towards an open field and will not be affected by the vacated easement. As the construction project moves on, the area will be regraded to ensure that the flow will continue to the west. In terms of sanitary sewer, there are two lines. There's a 12-inch that runs north and south down the middle of Oak Street, and a 10-inch that currently runs down the middle of the alley. Neither of these lines will be affected by the vacated easement. And currently there is a 4-inch water line that runs down the middle of Fifth, which will be shut off if necessary. It has been decided, though, at this time that it's not needed from the city's perspective. It is possible that it may be able to stay. Either way, no action will be needed from the city. There is a positive fiscal impact towards the city. DJ Engineering does not request or utilize local tax incentives, so the new building will be added to the property tax rolls once constructed. So in your packet, there is an exhibit of the area that will be vacated. With that, I'll turn it back to the council.
Okay. Mayor and council, the item that I want to walk you through is this document that we've actually been working on here for the last couple hours. So let me explain kind of what happened in that process. So staff was working under the revised subdivision regulations to go through the process for the vacation. And that's where you have the planning commission involvement and the public hearing and all of that component. So that component was done. But one of the things we discovered is that our subdivision regulations and the timeline on the notice requirement for hearing is different than what's in state statute. So they followed the subdivision regs, but that doesn't mirror what's in state statute. State statute has a longer period to it. And so we looked at the original action back in 2014 and tried to see if there was any way you could proceed with the action tonight. And what the attorneys had identified is when we did the action in 2014, we're actually relying on a different statute. So my understanding is the other process is generally when you have a landowner requesting an easement to be vacated, an easement owned by the city or the other utility. And what was told to me is what we used back then, 10 years ago, is something that you could look at using again. And it's this different statute, essentially, if the city is just choosing to give up the easement. So technically, you did have a landowner request. It did go through that process, went to a public hearing. They didn't have any comments or anything like that. But they published it for 10 days instead of 20 because the subdivision and the state statute don't actually align. So we were facing that challenge tonight. What the attorneys looked at again, if we go the avenue that you did in the original step when you vacated the street, because you vacated the street a long time ago. That's their private property now. And now the easement just goes across the private property. You can utilize that statute again. And so you have an ordinance drafted, if that's the path that you choose to take, that allows you to utilize that statute, which is the KSA 12-16104. So if that's the process that you choose to use to release that easement, then this notice shall include a statement, says shall expire upon 30 days following the date of final publication. So there's still some process with this, as if there would be with the other ordinance. You still have the publication timeline before it all becomes official. But this is the process that we used back then. And so it's available to you to use tonight. The reason you might want to consider that is because going back through the other process would create delay. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do that. I know that DJ is anxious to get going with their projects. I don't know how that would affect your projects, but going back another 45, 50 days would probably have an impact. So staff wanted to see if there was an avenue, and using the original statute that we did 10 years ago, the attorney says that yes, you can do that. So that's why you had an ordinance that was prepared for you that we just completed and put on your desk. So this ordinance references that new statute, basically says that the city is releasing that easement, which was the original intent when we vacated the roadway 10 years ago, but we didn't have a need to release the easement at that time because they weren't building anything. So it acknowledges that history. It says there's no fee or anything associated with the transaction. It says that DJ, as the underlying property owner and the adjoining property owner, essentially on all sides of that easement, is waiving any notification requirements to allow us to move forward using that particular statute. And then the legal description that is in the attachments in your packet is included in there as well. So the city attorney drafted this, and that's what we're presenting for your consideration tonight. That's the best way I can describe it. Now, Justin, I know that Andrew gave you a rundown. Were there any things that he wanted to be shared that I didn't?
I didn't have anything further to add. This is just another, like Josh said, just another vehicle to get it accomplished tonight if the council wants to do that. If you have questions about it, I can do my best to answer.
And so we will need to go back and correct our subdivision regulations and make sure that they mirror that statute so we don't have that problem again, but that has its own process for doing it. So we found this avenue. I don't necessarily like it better than following our other process, but it is an avenue that you used before, and technically you did have hearings and things on it. But so again, I don't like that option, but technically this is available. And this is exactly what we did 10 years ago.
Josh, does this need to be tied into just one motion, approval of the vacation along with approving ordinance number 2228?
I think it's approval of the ordinance does the vacation.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah, so I don't know if we have any other instruments we'll have to do, so Tim or Robbie might help me on this. My understanding is we're vacating a part of it, they're retaining something for that electric line to remain, right? That was modified. So this version of the ordinance recognizes that you're essentially getting rid of most of the easement, but then you're keeping the small part of the electric line that is going to remain, but the other part of it is going to go away.
I basically don't have any problem with doing this. I just would like to make sure that two items that were touched on, is this vacating this easement going to affect drainage any differently than it is now? Because there was some mention about it draining onto the west into a field. Are we talking about the mobile property?
Yeah, so Oak Street is right there, and Oak Street has that flume that is on the west side of Oak Street. So Fifth just kind of tees right in there. And so if there's any water that comes off of Walnut and flows down Fifth, it would make it there. It's all impervious surface right now. So whether you have a building that has impervious surface, runoff, or the street, don't know that those volumes are any different. But the planning commission, I think, looked at it and talked about that and didn't have any concerns about that particular issue.
So the water won't flow onto this easement off of the highway.
So you have the water flows in a couple of different ways in that area. So depending on where your crests are, some of your water on Walnut may just flow south, or it may cut through and flow west. It's all kind of flat there. I don't know the full discussion that Planning Commission had, but here is Fifth Avenue, and then there is this flume right here on the other side of Oak Street. So I believe in this section, you will have a building that is filling up most of that location as opposed to the roadway. So if there is water that comes here, then I guess it doesn't flow that direction anymore. It may continue to the south. I don't know the extent of the planning commission's conversation, so I'm open to. Can you come up to the?
Rob,
come up
Rob,
to the-
you would need to come to the speaker for us, the podium.
But while he's coming up there, the only reason I'm asking this question is I want to make sure we don't get in a situation like we have in the industrial park, where if water starts coming off of the highway or flowing into there, that the city then is asked to start making remedial action of some type because we don't have the easement to work on anymore.
Mayor,
Thank you.
buddy, then you can have it. The planning commission did touch on that a little bit. They had questions that currently the flow does, like Josh was saying, it flows towards the west. There was minimal runoff along Fifth right now. It's anticipated that with the new building, there won't be an increase in that flow, but that it will be graded so that the flow will continue to go towards the west, like Josh was saying, into that channel and then into the field, where it will just be across field saturation. But there was no concern that was going to be a flooding issue.
Well, are we going to have along Fifth Street where we vacated the street, can the curb not be put north and south along 77 so that it doesn't flow into that?
Yeah. So
area?
right now, and I am interested in hearing from DJ on this, so I may just let them
Josh,
do
the
that.
street view showed there's an elevation change. So if you go back to that street view, looking to the west.
I don't know what you can conclude from
Well,
this.
the water that's running along Walnut Street looks like it would continue south down Walnut and not encroach upon that property.
Yeah, so Oak doesn't actually have any stormwater infrastructure. The storm sewers that we have are on Walnut. And you can see that there are inlets a little more than half a block south right here. And that continues flowing south. And then this is the drainage flume that just takes whatever accumulates at this intersection at Fifth and Oak. And to the extent that it flows, it doesn't flow very much right now. It's all kind of flat. So it kind of holds right here in this section. But I'll gladly turn it over to staff.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Tim Johnson, Public Utilities Director. At the beginning of our conversations with DJ, all the relevant city staff met with them on site, and that includes Anthony Kraft, who's responsible for stormwater management in the city. Currently, that easement, the Fifth Street easement, flows west from the gutter on the west side of Walnut. So from the highway west, it all is currently flowing west into Oak, filling up Oak, spilling over onto the old refinery site. Visiting with DJ's staff, we had a little bit of a concern about that, and we wondered how they were going to move the water on the east side of the new proposed building. So east of that alley east to the highway. It's their intention to change the pitch a little bit so that part of that alley, instead of flowing west as it currently does, will flow east into the highway. Anthony and also the city engineer have determined that that increase in that flow is not an issue for the stormwater intakes south of there. So if anything, there's no such thing as making this the stormwater situation between Oak and the highway good without some serious dirt work and a stormwater design and some more infrastructure. That's not able to happen yet, in part because there's no land available on which to do any sort of stormwater detention at this point in time, in which, there's no way we can do a comprehensive solution to this. It is our estimation that what DJ plans to do right now, though, will be an incremental improvement in the current flooding problems in Oak Street. So I hope that addresses what Councilman Huddleston is asking about. They have considered drainage. There's no solution without a very expensive overall management plan to this, and they're not there yet, but then they don't have the land available to solve the larger problem.
But you don't see anything that they're doing and us giving the vacating this piece of land that in the future they would ask the city to fix for them.
No, I do
Okay.
not. Yeah, I'm not worried about
That's
that.
primarily what I'm getting at.
Yeah, they're not going to make it worse, and they may actually make it a little bit better.
Okay.
And one of the things I'll point out, this is just based on my knowledge and history, and I'm showing you up here on the screen. So Oak Street certainly is one of the problematic areas. And so I guess to the extent that you're taking any water away from the Oak Street area is actually helping. Because what you can see, Oak Street is all surface drainage until it gets all the way down to the south end. And there are two very tiny inlets at the south end. And those will get clogged a lot. I've personally cleaned them before and just to see that process, and they get clogged a lot. But when they're not clogged, they run to the south and then cut through the levee at the drainage structure. But what happens is when the river is up and blocks that floodgate, Oak just becomes a storage pond because the water cannot evacuate. That is different than the Walnut system. That Walnut system has inlets that go all the way down to the south, and even though they're only a block apart, they lead to a completely different location. The inlets on Walnut go over to the pump station and can forcibly be removed. The water from the interior of the system can forcibly be pumped out to the river, which is different than the Oak Street scenario. So to the extent that you moved any water from Oak Street over to this side, you have the ability to get that out in a way that you don't on Oak.
Tim, this might be a stupid question, but you know what happened at Global Parts out in the industrial park? The back end of it flooded.
Yes.
Could that happen to this same scenario or this scenario, same setup?
I'm not an engineer. Okay. But down at the, the industrial park has a great deal of water offsite coming right down past it that backs up the culvert underneath 400 and prevents the industrial park from draining. And the industrial park is very, very low. It's sited lower than today. We would bring in a lot of fill and raise all those buildings if we were to do it again. I don't see the two as being the same, but we are in Augusta and flooding is an almost universal challenge in Augusta. And the further south we go, the more problematic it becomes. So I can give you no guarantees, but I do believe the two are two different animals.
It looks like, and I'm not trying to knock this under the bridge or anything, but it looks like it's going to hold water there. I've rode a boat through there before when the water's been high.
At the industrial park?
No, on Walnut
On
Street.
Walnut? Well,
Long time ago, but
Walnut has better drainage by far and a different direction in which, well, a different outlet than does Oak Street. And Oak Street is taking all of the drainage off Fifth Street right now, or the Fifth Street right of way.
I'm not too worried about going west. I'm
Yeah.
worried about coming from the north down and going south.
North, we're talking about the eastern half of that alley. That's not going to have any more than a marginal effect, and even then, only in a heavy rain event.
And Tim, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but when they actually get to the point of having a building, there's going to be other process to that. Like they'll have construction drawings and
They'll have
and things like
construction
that.
drawings, and I'm sure Travis will go through those with them. They'll have to build a code, and part of code is how you get water away from the foundation and where it goes.
Sure.
But I will underscore, there's no perfect answer to this. This could marginally improve the overall situation, but that's all it's going to do. It's going to replace impermeable area with new impermeable area.
Is there a reason that DJ Engineering doesn't just go ahead and put the curb along 77 rather than leave the driveway there?
So at least, right, I mean, yeah, you can ask them about their future plans, at least at this moment, this action item, that was their exit from that. And I think it was one-way exit right
Correct. There's
now.
one
So
way exit.
if you want to describe your future plans.
So over here, there's a possibility that sooner or later we would need to get a truck through there. So what we're looking at is DJ Engineering is helping the Artemis project with NASA and everybody else. What we're going to do is there's going to be a driveway that goes straight through that building. So that way we're going to still have the road there and kind of a way, but we're going to be able to drive a truck through and unload these large rocket parts. So we want to be able to exit through that. Right now, we don't really have any water that comes off of Walnut down into Oak. I've been out there, trust me, over the last 10 years, we've had a lot of water. But if you look at these two buildings, the one on the south, the one on the north there, those are up about 3 feet from the road. When we put this building up over the road right there, it's going to be about 3 feet from, we're going to have to build that up to match those buildings. We have not had water in those buildings, I think, since those buildings have been in, since inception, basically. We've had water down on the original buildings, down on Oak, back in the 90s during the big flood. Other than that, I've sat out here and watched the water come all the way up the driveway. The last, what was it, like 6 years ago or something, we had the big floods. Never came in our buildings. No, this is not going to be like a global thing where we're downhill and we have buildings that are basically subgrade at that point. It's not apples to apples here. This road right here is still going to stay open as well. Oak Street is not being closed. I just want to make that clear as well.
Buddy, you might want to tell everybody who you are.
Sorry, yes. So my name is Buddy Willis. I'm a director with DJ Engineering.
Thank you, buddy. Any other questions?
Well, yeah, I want to make sure we're through about the water drainage. The other question I have is concerning the 4-inch water line. Is there a reason? Well, I'm sure there's a reason, but if it's left in the easement, is that going to be an active water line?
So we can leave it right now. There's a valve on either side of it, on the east and the west. So if for some reason it has a rupture in the future or whatever, it can be shut off retroactively. I mean, we can just turn it off on either
Okay,
side.
so it doesn't go anywhere. It's not needed.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Huddleston, the water superintendent has determined that that is not a needed, much less a necessary line going forward. And it's my understanding that line's already been shut off at both ends and will be abandoned in place. There's no point in digging up something you don't have to dig up. So it will be abandoned.
I think what I would say, and again, it's not specifically project related, but since we're talking about this area, I think we would have some kind of goal in the future, if you can figure out how to swing it, of the mains that run kind of perpendicular to this area, and where we've looked at it before would be out in the Walnut Street. We would like to look at upsizing those mains for fire suppression purposes and other reasons. These smaller crossing lines may not be super helpful for that, but the mains themselves, we do think if we can ever figure out how to swing it as a project, we would like to upgrade those purely for fire suppression reasons.
The one there on the southwest corner there, does that feed from the north, that hydrant?
Yeah, there's this small looping at least if these maps are accurate. Sometimes what we have in the ground is different than our maps, but it shows this looping section down 6 and then Oak. And then comes down, looks like it has a couple. See, that says there's a 2-inch line down on 4th. I don't know if I was answering your question. So there's some smaller mains on either side with these small interconnections in between.
What I was asking, does that feed the fire hydrants there on Oak?
I think all of these would feed the fire hydrants. So this one here, which is right there in 5th, again, if this map is accurate, it looks like it's feeding off of Oak and not off of this one, which is the line that we're talking about abandoning in place. Looks like it feeds off of Oak.
Wonder if that's gonna be enough, sufficient for that fire hydrant there. I mean, without the other one there.
You keep it or not, general fire suppression around this whole area is a concern to us right now. And I don't know whether it makes much of a difference. Again, we talked with the water superintendent. I don't know if that question was asked, if he thought it'd make any difference on the pressure.
It was.
for that.
That's why,
Okay.
that's part of it, why he determined that that line could be abandoned,
The what? I'm sorry.
that the 5th Street line could be abandoned. Volume and pressure in the 6th Street, in Oak Street, are of great concern, of course, to Brandon. And he took that into account when determining whether or not he needed to continue to have that line in the 5th Street easement. And it decided that no, he does not need that in order to provide sufficient fire suppression.
Any other questions?
I move for approval of the vacation of 80-foot drainage utility easement located on West 5th Avenue between Oak Street and the alley, as recommended by the Planning Commission using ordinance number 2228 with the provisions of KSA 12-16-104.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve this vacation and ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's a roll call.
It's a roll call, I'm sorry.
Huddleston,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Rivas,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Leffler,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank all of you that attended. So that takes us down to matters from and for our council. We'll start with city manager has a report tonight.
Yes, Mayor and Council, since there weren't too many items on the agenda, I figured I would provide some general updates to you and the community on various projects that are under construction, some pending items that we're looking at in the future. It's not as robust as I had originally intended, but I will go through with some updates that you probably haven't heard. So the first piece, and I just heard this today, so I'm hoping to get some more formal information out here in the next couple of days. But I want to alert the community that we are still working with Kansas Paving to try to finalize the construction project. The project is not complete, that there are elements that we have been working to get a resolution to. And currently, the last update I received is that they are scheduled to be out this week doing work on a couple of flumes. The flumes are going into a couple of the intersection areas that have low spots where we've identified that they've been holding water. So the flumes are intended to help move that water out of those spots. I just heard today, again, I don't know which day, they've told us that that flume work, they're expecting crews to be on site this week to do it. And I will get some more details out, try to get you some maps so the community can see that. The other piece of it is work on the actual roadway itself. And that includes asphalt work. It includes a repair to a private drive entrance that was identified as problematic. At this time, they are telling us that they are scheduled for next week to start that asphalt work, but we don't know the exact day yet. They're trying to formalize their crews and then hopefully give us an actual day so we can notify people. But right now, we're just going to get a general notice out. So the private individual I will reach out to and make sure that he's aware so we can put that on his calendar. For the general public, our understanding, there is work that they're going to do on the far north end of the project, and that is at the I guess that's where the city road blends in with the county road at the far north end. There's a pretty big hump that's been really noticeable from the beginning, especially at that north end. So they are going to be doing some mill and overlay work to flatten all of that back out. And what we were told is that the way they're going to manage traffic is at this point, we're expecting it to be down to one lane, and they will have flaggers during that component of the construction in that location. And so they'll be flagging people to move back and forth. So you're not going to be cut off from going a direction, although you may see some disruption. Again, this is a much smaller fix compared to the broader scale of the project. The city has given them a deadline of October 31st to have this work done. And so today was the first that I had heard that they are getting their crew scheduled to be out. So I will try to get some more formal information out to council, also to the community to let them know what to expect. So again, the project is not done. We are working to resolve all of the different issues under the contract. And these are the things that they have committed to doing to try to get some of these repairs made. So hopefully they will follow through, and then we'll see how all of that goes. But I just got that information about an hour ago, right before the meeting started. So I wanted to share that with everybody tonight, and we'll do a little bit more formal work here in the next couple of days to get that information out.
Josh, last week were the crews out there doing the straight edge on the pavement, trying to determine, unevenness.
Yes, that is something else that we're working on. So we have the elements of the contract, and we've essentially negotiated to a point to try to bring a resolution. And so the contract that involves the contractor doing some work, and that involves us looking at other avenues on other items of the project, but we're going to get repaired what we can this way. So that's what I can share publicly about what we've been working on. And I know people have had a lot of questions and concerns, and just we've been trying to work through that with a contractor. And I hate sharing information as I get it, because a lot of times by the time we get to that day, we get different information from the contractor. So I almost hate putting that out there. But I think it's important to know that people should see them back on site doing some repairs to the roadway in areas where we've identified problems. So that is Kansas Paving and North Ohio project. The next project I want to provide an update on is the dam construction project. So the contracts for that project have been signed and circulated, and I expect that we'll have a pre-construction meeting coming up here pretty soon. I haven't heard what that date's going to be yet, but that project is 85 days. It's contract time, 85 days, and those days start either October 23rd or October 30th. So there's an early start date of October 23rd and then a late start of October 30th. So the contractor has that week to kind of decide what they're going to set as their start date. And then those 85 days start counting from that point forward. So we've identified a haul route that is going to be utilized for that project. And we should have just had letters that went out to folks in the Loomis Land area since they're primarily the ones that are going to be affected. But the haul route is going to be coming up Dyke Road and going through the shortest path that we can find through the city, through the Loomis Land area, and then coming down through Garvin Park with the staging area for the rock riprap that's going to be installed down here along the City Lake roadway. We did get an agreement put together with the township regarding Dyke Roads. That was one of the things that was impacting our start of the project. But essentially, when this project is done, we're going to do an evaluation of our city roads and then plan whatever project we need to do to repair any damage that has occurred to those. But we are also going to partner with the township to get a chip seal surface placed on Dyke Road. And so we saw a mutual benefit in working with them on that. We had a previous agreement from the North Ohio project already to participate. So now we're just going to participate in a higher level after having officially designated this as a haul route. And I think the long-term benefit that we see is improving ingress, egress for folks in our community to get out in emergency situations, or having a more reliable alternative route. Say you ever have to do construction on North Ohio again, I think a chip seal Dyke Road is a much better route than it would be in its current gravel state. If you've been anywhere near Dyke Road or live near Dyke Road, everybody's aware of the dust issues and clouds and things that come off of that. They also spill into the downtown area, spill into our commercial area. So getting that chip sealed, we think, has a variety of benefits, not just to the township, but to the city as well. And so once this project is over, we chose to partner to get that road upgraded. So again, scheduled start date, October 23rd to 30th, somewhere in that week. That does not mean that the contractor will be on site that first day. They can start mobilizing. They can do a variety of things. They may not be on site, but their contract time starts ticking. And that is the local contractor, Allen's Excavating, for that project. So also in that area, I can tell you that in Garvin Park, Alternative Electric, as council will recall, previously approved an agreement for them to move forward with updating the electrical system in Garvin Park so you can restore the outlets and different plugins and things to work with Ignite Augusta to reintroduce the holiday light display. So Alternative Electric and City Crews. City Crews were doing some of the borings and things under the roadway. That's something we had committed to. And then Alternative Electric has been doing the upgrades to a lot of the above ground stuff and getting the plugins powered up again. They are close to wrapping up their work. They got a good amount of that done in September and early part of October. And now they're putting the final touches on it based on the map of where Ignite Augusta was planning on having their displays. Now, what I've heard from Ignite Augusta, and the community has probably seen this as well, they did have some theft and damage to their displays and theft of wiring. So I don't think they're going to be able to put up everything that they had intended in the first year. They're doing fundraising activities to try to get those others repaired. But they did indicate to me that they are looking at doing a smaller version of a display this year. And assuming that moves forward, they'll probably be towards the end of this month or in early November that they may try to start setting up displays. But again, with it being a smaller display, maybe a test run case, I'm not expecting it to fill the entire park. We've made them aware that this road will be used as a haul road. But the light display is more of an after hours thing when the traffic is going through, and the haul road is more of a daytime sort of situation. So I don't know that that's going to be problematic. I don't expect that it will be, but if we do run into any issues, then we'll just kind of coordinate accordingly. Again, what I've heard is Ignite Augusta was planning on putting up some displays this year to kind of test it out and see how that goes. The skate park, I'm going to say it's nearing completion. I'm not going to give you an official completion date, but to me, it looks like they're a few weeks off from doing that. They've been moving very quickly, have been on site continuously for most of the past 4 weeks, and the ramps, all the features are in. It looks like they're down to the flat work. And so outside of curing time, I expect they're going to have that wrapped up sometime in the near future. They've been moving very expeditiously on that project. And there's some good pictures and video tracking. We will, when the project is done, we worked in partnership with Josh Burns, and we do have a camera system that we've set up to do a time lapse of that project. So we're hoping to have a video when it's all done that shows the entire progression from start to finish. But they have been moving very well, and it is getting closer to completion. Earlier this month, I had the pre-construction meeting for the airport runway project. This is a project that is nearly 15 years in the making. And so if people from the public aren't super familiar with the history, this started in about 2007, 2008 timeframe with studies and concerns from the FAA regarding the runway safety zones, the obstruction areas. And so there have been studies, environmental analyses, master plans, layout plans, getting all the way to the point of finally applying for grants, being awarded grants. And now 15 years into this, we're actually starting construction. So the contractor is scheduled to be on site, I believe, October 19th. That contractor is Donlinger Construction. They have a wide variety of subs that are doing work on the project. And essentially the phasing of the project, you're going to have 2 phases. So October 19th to kind of mid-December, we're going to call that the fall-winter phase. They are just going to be doing earthwork. That's all that's going on. So that involves the closure of 110th Street, the construction of the cul-de-sac per our agreement with Butler County, shaping, filling in this pond area. And one of the things they noted during the pre-construction is the pond is essentially dry right now. So that project is, in terms of filling that in, is expected to be much easier at this moment than they intended. Now that I said that, we'll probably get 4 inches of rain tomorrow. But that's what they're going to focus on in those initial 2 months, getting most of their, or at least right now, getting all of their dirt from on site. That's as long as the engineers' calculations work out, they are just reshaping this property that we acquired, filling this in, and then they're going to have a shutdown over the winter, and that'll give the earth that they've moved a chance to settle. And then when they come back next spring, that'll be in April. They'll continue their earthwork. Anything that's settled, get that raised back up, but you won't see any paving activity until at least April of next year. And so the second phase of the project goes from April to, I think, like October. That's when the paving will occur. And we are going to have another pre-construction meeting probably in March before the second phase starts, so everybody can get refreshed on the rules and the process, and make sure that we're ready to go for that second phase. The FAA did approve all of the grants, so this is 90% funded by the FAA. The city had its 10% match in 2016. That was actually part of the Pride and Progress Sales Tax Initiative that was conceived of all the way back then. And we've just been sitting here waiting to secure the FAA grants, which we have finally done. And so we are now moving to construction on the airport runway project. I will provide a bigger update to this in the future, but I can tell you that we have submitted field check plans to KDOT and to staff for kind of a joint review for the Redbud Bridge crossing on the highway. Again, I know there's more interest in that project than some of the others, so I'll try to give you a better, more detailed update in the future. I just want to let you know that field check plans have been submitted for that project. Another project I will update council and the community on is our new subdivision that is under construction. And that is the Shadow Ridge subdivision that exists here between, I'm going to call it David Avenue and Danbury Belmont. To the south, we have the new subdivision, I think, has 24 units in it. And then they also have 12 lots that are available for units. They're part of a subdivision that was previously platted. So the total project is actually 36 new housing units. These are considered moderate income housing. I don't know what the final price point is going to be, but the city had a partnership with this development group for this area by creating a rural housing incentive district, securing grant funding through the moderate income housing grant. And then the developers also secured additional tax credits for this project through a separate program that the Kansas Housing Resource Commission had available. And so the purpose of all of those tools, all of those incentives, was to get these homes built at a moderate income level. That still may be a $250,000 home, but be able to offer those homes without any special assessments on them. The developer is paying all of those costs and then utilizing the grants, the tax credits, and then that rural housing incentive district in order to pay for the infrastructure. So they're getting paid back over time, but it's a new experiment for us to try to get interest going in housing in Augusta. And it is actively under construction. Most of this land has been cleared. I think I shared an aerial image with council the other day where they're laying out the roadways, the drainage areas. So we will have some work that we have to do as they get closer to finding buyers of the lots. There's some agreements that, again, while we have the MIH grant, the city will have to sign off on a few other things. But I can tell you that they are close. If they haven't pulled it, I know they were getting all of their steps in place to pull the permit on the first home for construction. So that happened before I went off on vacation. And so I haven't heard anything new in the days I've been out, but I know that the first home is planning to be started here in the near future. Did you have something you want to share, Tim? Perfect.
We gotta do something.
Tim Johnson, Public Utilities Director. I received a phone call today from the inspector on the project. The water line is in and ready to be tested. He reached out to me asking what tests we require before the line can go live. So by next week, that line could be pressurized and ready to tap into. I was out on site today, and as far as I can tell, which isn't to say that I know everything about this project, as far as I can tell, all of the sanitary sewers installed as well. So they're really moving with great alacrity, and things are going well. We have enough electric transformers already on site to take care of somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 homes right away before the remaining transformers that we've had to order come in here in the next few months. So it's great not only to see it happening, but to see how quickly it is being built.
And the thing that I'll share with the public, because you may not know much about the layout, but I'm just going to give you a general look at it. So if anybody can see this at home, I know you guys can see it here in the room, but where I just drew these lines, this is how the roadways will connect. So Rutland Lane is actually being extended, goes all the way through up to David, and then the homes kind of line it on either side. So it's not a dead end cul-de-sac street the way a lot of our other subdivisions have been. There is a street that connects all the way through. And then this roadway that stops down here on Mainsgate Drive, I believe, loops around here as well. So it closes in some of the gaps that had existed previously in our road network and will be easier to traverse than some of our newer subdivisions that just kind of dead end after you've wound around for a while. Okay, Tim, before you sit down, the next item I had was base grant. And so I do have to provide my report to the state of Kansas here in the next couple of weeks. But the base grant consists of the new the new substation, that's the word I was looking for, the 69 kV transmission line, and then the industrial park feeder. And then we have also looped in, to the extent that the project can cover it, any assistance we can get on the cooling towers that are being worked on over at the electric plant. So the cooling towers, as the name indicates, basically keeps the engines from burning up when we're running them. They're a critical component. We had some issues during the February storm, and so we had planned on upgrading those towers. Tim, is there anything that you can share, just so the public understands what the project is, or council, regarding
Your
the base
cursor
grant?
is right where I want it. Zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, right there where your cursor is, that's the tower that's being replaced now. The old tower's been removed. The new basin and plumbing are in. The new tower is actually on the foundation now. The next step will be installing the motors and doing the final plumbing and final wiring on the thing. Looks pretty cool, really does. Now, if you go south with that cursor down to that bottom tower, that's the next one. That's the one that you budgeted for this year, that we hope to still go to bid on this year, but it's probably going to get pushed back to next year. On the base grant, everything that can be done short of running conduit from the switchyard south to the toe, all right, and then under the tracks there, right about there, we'll be running at least 6 heavy bores under the railroad. You can see that there's currently an aerial line running over the tracks there. That will also be put underground. We are waiting on the railroad for final costs on their end and final permission to actually begin the bores. These are not bores the city has the equipment or the skill set to do. These are very long, very large, and rather dangerous bores, so they will have to be contracted. The 69 line, I'm sure you've all seen that the poles are in, and the poles that are along the trail, you should begin to see cross arms and conduit going up in the next few weeks on those. The substation side itself, we can't go any further than we are now until we have a plat approved. That's just the way our law is set up, and it's reasonable. You cannot develop on land inside the city limits of Augusta, and this is common in virtually all cities, until that land is platted. We're clearing up a chain of ownership issue for that triangle, and then we'll get a plat to the planning commission here in the next few weeks, and then move it on to you. At that point in time, we can begin pouring the pilings and begin to install the steel. But go ahead.
I was going to say, and regarding that substation, one of the biggest critical components of it, the transformer, We were able to acquire the transformer. If you recall, I think we were at a meeting maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months back, and Jim had indicated that he was going up to, I think, Kansas City for the bid opening for that. So there was 2 bids that came in.
Yes.
Both of them higher than expected, and the lower bid was, I think, $1.3 million. The issue that we ran into is that the transformer that we wanted that was more expensive also had close to a 4-year lead time.
The transformer we wanted was less expensive.
Oh, that's
But
right.
it's
It
a
was less expensive.
5-year wait.
Yes, that's right. And so the other one that was, and when we say less expensive, I think we were under $100,000
Yeah,
difference.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was a smaller difference, but yeah, the one we wanted was 4.5 to 5 years out. The other one was about 2 years out. And obviously we are on a time crunch with the state because this is all grant funded. So I reached out to the state of Kansas, talked to them about the project, and they are planning on doing an amendment to our schedule that allows our payback period essentially to go out as far as ARPA does. So rather than cutting us off in 2024, they extended us out into 2026. So that kind of made our decision for us, even though it wasn't the transformer that we were hoping for. It's a suitable transformer for the application, and it's the only one that fits in the timeline that we've been given to have this federally funded. So that's some of the development here in the last 2 months or so.
The transformer we're buying is a fine
It
transformer.
is.
Don't feel like you're getting leftovers. You're not. It's just that the one we really wanted was something we would really want.
Okay, so anything else from you, Tim,
I have
on?
nothing else to add. I just wanted to pile on how nicely Shadow Ridge is coming along.
Okay, so for the public, again, the base grant, that was a project that we were looking at doing a bond issue for a couple of years ago. And the reason being is because our electric grid was reaching capacity. And DJ Engineering's growth, or because of all the big equipment they use, or new subdivisions coming on, we were kind of capped out in our system. And the base grant program came along, and we formed that partnership with DJ and went after that, and were able to secure $4 million from the federal government. And so they are paying for all of these projects 100%. Our local citizens, our ratepayers are not paying for that. But that was the need of the project. We were looking at doing something with rates, and we ended up not having to because we formed that partnership and put that grant application together and secured it. So that's something we're really proud about. And hopefully that system can serve us for the next 40 or 50 years and give us some redundancy, help us improve our capacity. Only had one other thing I will share tonight, and then I'll bring it to conclusion. Again, I think I had a bigger plan for this presentation, but the common consumption ordinance, I was planning on having that on this agenda, and then the way my vacation ended up working out, I didn't get that done. But I will say I got feedback from our insurance carrier that was not as flexible as I was expecting it to be, and so I couldn't have prepared the ordinance that I was planning to prepare anyway, because they still have insurance concerns and are putting some requirements on us, and I want to understand the impact of that to our businesses and be able to answer those questions when you ask them. So I was hopeful when we talked with our broker that, because he kind of understood our situation, we talked with ABC, the state alcohol office, just to verify some of this stuff. But our insurance carrier still has concerns that did not get resolved when our broker tried to talk him through it. So I'm not going to say that I'm back where I'm started. I'm not there, but it was not as smooth as I expected it to be. And so I need to try to get those questions answered. And I did not get to call them before I left on vacation. So that's why the common consumption ordinance did not come tonight. All right, Mayor and Council, with that, I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions or any other projects you'd like me to provide update on. I just wanted to share some information publicly that maybe the general public had not heard on some of these projects.
Mr. Martin, do you have anything tonight?
Just a small little hole
on 54 highway going west on the overpass. It's the north lane going west. There's a hole developing and it's gonna take the whole overpass down if we don't be careful with it. I'm kidding. Needs to be fixed, just a hole filled on the overpass.
A pothole.
Huh?
A pothole.
Pothole, yes, it's
Yes,
getting
okay.
bigger. I'm done.
Okay. Jeff,
I don't have anything tonight.
Mr. Leffler.
I have nothing. Just wanted to thank Josh for the update. That's a good update.
Yeah, I appreciate it too.
Bob.
Yeah, I was wondering about that motor home that's still in the yard at the corner. If the,
It's in the court system until October 34th, so their next court hearing date.
So the public can
October
hear
when?
that. It's in the court
31st?
system right now.
okay, I knew I was just wondering the date.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Richardson.
I just want to say, thanks to the Department of Safety for the Faith in Blue that you had at the park. Very successful. And also, Chief, thank you for putting your officers in the churches the next day and stuff. It was very welcomed, except by all the people there. And it was a good deal to help with rapport and stuff between people and the department. So good job. Well done. Thank you.
Mr. Rivas.
Couple quick little things. I know everybody was hoping for a short meeting tonight. I was up on North Ohio the other day and a cattle hauler was northbound on Ohio Street and looked in my rearview mirror and there was an officer in hot pursuit. Got him stopped. But we've done a real good job with signage for southbound on Ohio Street. I went out on 7th and looked. The only no truck route, no truck sign is on the crossbar at 7th and Osage, probably a 10 by 20 inch sign saying no trucks up on the crossbar of the traffic signals. I don't know if the city's in a very good defendable position with that lack of warning.
Here about a month ago, we went out and we took pictures of all the truck signs that are here on 54, as well as you go around the corner. There's more there, but they're really, really faded. And I believe that's in the ordering stage. I forwarded that on to, was it Anthony? I think that takes care of all that. They're in the process of actually updating those signs for us now. But it's just something they have to order though. It takes time.
Okay.
Yeah, I made that known to them as well.
And my second concern is the new crosswalk at Fanning in Ohio. Week to 10 days ago, a small child was hit in a similar crosswalk in Mays and hurt pretty bad. The yellow lights were flashing. When I think kids especially, and even me, when I push the sign and some kind of, or the button and some kind of flashing lights start working, I think I'm safe to enter that crosswalk and walk. But with those yellow flashing lights, as a driver, that does not tell me to stop.
Mhm.
So what are our options there?
To do that, you would have to change the lights out again to like a push button. Then a stoplight comes up for a certain amount of time, then it recycles again. You'd have to change those out. I don't know if there's any way to program those any different than that. Matter of fact, my SRO talked to me, it was about a month or so again, right before school started. We noticed that people weren't stopping for people that would hit the button and they just weren't. So we had to put officers there. Other than short of that, you'd have to change it to a crosswalk type of sign that it's a solid stop. It's not.
Well, there's not even
Josh,
a sign there
map.
that says stop for pedestrians and crosswalk.
There's not. It's but it has to do with the regulations and something too. You know about that?
Josh, can you put on the map? I didn't hear the address.
Fanning in Ohio.
It's a mid-block present. One of the things I can tell you is that We're in another partnership with the school district right now on what's called a TEAP study. If you remember back a few years ago, we qualified for that program through KDOT to look at State Street and the crosswalk at the middle school. And so the school district reached out to us and were concerned about that entire corridor on Ohio Street, including that crossing. And our study was actually funded. And so Trans Systems has done traffic counts. They've done analysis on that area. And one of the things we tasked them with was looking at lane configurations, looking at pedestrian movements. And as part of the final version of their study, they're responsible for making recommendations to us on that whole corridor. I think they went all the way up to Belmont. It's like Kelly to Belmont almost. So they broadened it out. And I don't know what their answers are going to be, but we specifically drew their attention to that mid-block crossing and asked for some sort of recommendations on how to improve pedestrian safety movement. So I know that that doesn't resolve the issue tonight, but we do actually have a traffic engineer that is reviewing that entire corridor, and hopefully we'll get some long-term solutions out of that, and they can make some calls on how you might want to modify it in the future.
One last bit of information on that. Those lights that we have there now, those are temporary replacement for the one that was taken out by an automobile several months ago. Those lights cannot be made to do anything other than what they are doing. They would have to be replaced with new lights that you can actually create a stop with. We cannot program or modify what's there right now to do what the old ones did last year.
Yeah, they were hit by a driver. Yeah,
They were hit
by
yeah.
a driver and wiped
They
out.
were hit and wiped out. Those aren't the same ones.
For
Those are
clarification.
temporary ones. It's just something we had in stock in a shop that we were able to get out there and put in, but we don't have anything else in the city's stock that we could install there that would actually stop traffic. We don't have that technology right now.
And it'd be nice to get this study back, because if you look like there, Josh has got the photograph up. I personally don't like where the crosswalk is. There's no school there. And to be honest, it needs to me, it'd be moved up to where the street is to walk on the sidewalk. I'm not sure why it's in the middle of a block like that, but that's where the study is talking about. It's going to have, I don't know why there's a stop or a crosswalk right in the middle of a block like that and not up there on the corner to where it would make more sense to have lights and a crosswalk. Go ahead.
Years ago, there was some federal study done that they didn't want crosswalks next to intersections.
And that study that Josh is talking about will probably bring all those things out.
Yeah.
But it's just not a very visible crosswalk the way it sits. And I would agree with Ron on that. But until the study's finished and we get more stuff back.
Lights give
What's
you,
that?
I just think the yellow flashing lights give you a false sense of security.
If they even see them. To me, they're just not that bright of a light either. But if it's temporary, because that's all we had and that's all we got until we can get the new stuff in.
But even a sign for the pedestrian that kind of enter at your own risk, the lights mean nothing because they actually don't.
Or signs north and south, both warning we're approaching a crosswalk. To the drivers
Stop
as
when
well.
lights are flashing or something.
Yeah, I would agree with you on it. We had that very discussion at the department here a while back about that crosswalk.
Erica has an update on the insurance element related to this crossing.
I just wanted to update you that part of what we're running into is we do have an insurance claim because it was a drunk driver that hit it. Typically, they'll replace it in kind. What was there, you can't replace what was there anymore. They don't make that or that any of the replacement parts or the equipment. What we would like to replace it with is much, much more expensive. And so I've gone around and around with the insurance company to some degree on that. But part of it is we need to finalize the plan for what we're going to do in order to get any kind of money back from the insurance company. And so I think a decision is going to have to be made sooner than later, or we're going to end up in a situation where we may not get any money or assistance from the insurance company.
And the messy part about that is we're in the middle of that study that's going to make recommendations, and you would hate to say invest $50,000 to $100,000 on a lighted crossing that they're going to recommend, hey, you
Do
don't
something
put that
completely
there.
different.
You put it somewhere else, or you put something completely different in. So we are in a weird position right now. I have asked them if they could expedite the recommendation as quick as possible, but I think we're still probably about 30 days away from.
And that's plenty of time, but I
from
do
that
think we may
study.
have to negotiate with the insurance company, because if we're upgrading what was an $80,000 system to a $300,000 system, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, they're not going to pay $300,000 for what was damaged, even though we can't replace it with that anymore. So there's going to be some negotiation that's going to happen with the insurance company, but a portion of it should be reimbursed by the insurance company.
But for the short story, it's being worked on. We're just waiting on a lot of things, but we agree with you.
Well, it sounds like signage can help. Can we get signage up? I mean,
We can send Anthony back
We'll-
out because
yeah, we'll talk
there's
with our staff.
regulations we have to follow for distance as well, but
Okay.
Anthony researches that pretty good.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, staff. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Eric,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Huddleston.
Well, I just want to be clear on an item because I've had some people ask me in regards to the dam about the rock we're going to put on there. And I understand it's a limestone. And I just want to be comfortable in my own mind that limestone is a good rock to be putting on there for riffraff.
Yeah, so I sent out a summary to council. Hopefully everybody got that and has seen it as kind of a 10-point summary from the engineer. So the project, in addition to the permitting that we had to get through Kansas Division of Water Resources, the Corps, KDHE also had a review process, and they required a water quality control plan to be created. The engineers, again, specifically related to this question, reached out to them and asked about the concerns with the rock. So this is a rock that has been specified and meets KDOT specifications for embankments and streams and those sort of things. They specifically asked KDHE, do you see any issues with this? And KDHE wrote back that no, they did not. Again, there's more detail in that email that I sent to council. And so if anyone has those questions, and when I'm looking at that, I can provide you that bullet point list, but it is something that we specifically asked the engineer to verify. Talk to whoever you need to talk to help, I guess, help assuage or mitigate any concerns that people may have in that regard. So,
What concerns me about what you said is concerning water quality. And maybe it will not affect the water quality, but is the water going to have an effect on the rock?
what's specified, again, that they have a specification for the rock that is approved for these types of uses. That's essentially what they're.
That's what I just want to be, you know,
Yeah,
have
there,
put to
there's
rest,
different, there's
because
different
it's-
types of limestones, there's types of granite and river rocks and other sort of things that can be used. And this is a rock that the engineer had indicated that is specified by KDOT and used on embankments, used on stream work and stuff that they do. And so that was all submitted in the permit process to DWR.
No, it hasn't been used in dams.
This was submitted to DWR.
Okay,
They
all
reviewed
right.
the plans and all of that.
Okay.
Again, that's all in that response that I provided, and they could answer it better than I did, but we specifically asked those questions. And
Okay, I'm only asking a question
No,
because
I
the people
understand.
ask me.
no, and I think
and
it's
know
a
some of
fair,
the council-
I think it's a fair
council
question.
here
and-
has asked questions in the past saying, we
Mhm.
want to make sure we get it right this time. And I would hate for the council to be sitting here in 15 years from now going, why are we having to replace all the rock on this dam? We just did it 15 years ago.
Well, and I mean, long-term, you will have maintenance on the dam of some type. It may be rock, it may be something else. It's not going to be the type of maintenance that you have on the earth
Okay.
berm. But again,
That's all I have.
it was a legitimate question, and that's why I posed it to the engineer and had them do the write-up and provide all of the information that they got back from the agencies when they asked those questions.
That email came to us all on October 6th. And item 2 said, KDOT specification for riprap per the project specifications. Limestone is one of the types of quarried stone that is allowed. That was from the engineer and DWR and KDH. So that was the permitting people saying that that's an allowed substance.
Well, but Mayor, just one more comment. So was the cloth that was put on it a few years ago. That was allowed also.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Is there a suggestion being made, or seems like a back-ended comment?
Well,
Do you, I mean, I understand the question, but
I'm just throwing it out because we expressed concern on the council
Right.
last time this project was getting ready to be approved, is we want to get it right this
yeah,
time.
no, I agree with that, but I think,
So I'm just asking the question, are we sure that this limestone is the solution? And if we are, I'm fine with that.
I'm sure we asked the question.
Okay.
Got an answer.
Anything else?
I've seen diagrams of the dam that we're going to put in with the riffraff. I'd like to know how far down in the water the rocks are going to be,
It's on that diagram, Mike.
but where the water level is going to be at now is,
It's all on that diagram if you go back and look at it.
So it doesn't extend like 60 or 70 feet where the riprap, when you look at that diagram, I don't know what that full distance is. But I mean, my guess is somewhere in the 6 feet to 7 feet of depth of water. So a lot of it's going to be contingent on where your lake is sitting. So when the lake sits at a lower level like this, it's not even touching the sacrificial berm at the moment. It's not even touching that toe. So if you consider the lake's normal level in that top 5 feet or so, that's where the riprap is that protects it from hitting on the dam face. But it does not extend down like 40 or 50 feet down into the water. It doesn't do that. The way it's designed, it sits around that area where the wave action is and is supposed to be.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? We're adjourned. Thank you. Don't forget to vote.